All right, guys, put everything away and come meet me at the horseshoe table. Please bring the markers back. Thank you. I have stuff. Okay, so before we get started, when Nyeska comes and joins us, we are going to go over rules for the group, okay? So I want you to think of one good way that you can be a responsible group member in our lesson today. So when you think of a good way to be responsible in our group, I want you to put your hands on your head, okay? So go ahead, think of a way and put your hand on your head when you could think of one. Okay, so I'm waiting on one more person. Okay, good. All right, hands down. Elia.
To be respectful when other people are talking.
Okay, so how can you be respectful when other people are talking? You need to do what?
Listen to other people and not like make comments about it.
Good, good. Yeah, no negative comments. If you want to make a comment or ask a question, you can.
I think we're supposed to be respectful.
Respectful, just like Eliel. What's another way you could be respectful?
By listening to the speaker.
Listening to the speaker. So whether it is a teacher or a classmate, make sure you're listening. Good. So when you're listening, where should your eyes be?
On the speaker.
On the speaker. Yeah, Scott.
When the student or like the teacher is talking, make sure like you're giving eye contact. Make sure you're not like playing with your pencil. Make sure like you're listening to the directions they're giving you.
Good. Eliana.
Never walk away when somebody's speaking.
Yeah, don't get up out of your chair when someone's speaking because that's rude, right? Okay. Good, Angeles. I like that. Make sure you're positive. I don't want to hear any huffing or puffing because today's supposed to be fun, okay? So, remember, does anyone remember what the signal is when I want you to respond? So, say I'm asking you a question, what is the signal? Okay, so, Elia, what is it? A clap. So when I give a clap, that's when you give the signal. So when will you answer when I do what?
Clap.
Clap. Good. Okay, so remember, everyone will wait until I give the signal to respond. No one will respond before I give the signal. When I clap, everyone will share their response. So let's review what a food chain is. Who can remember what is important for survival? So remember, you're waiting. Everyone?
Producers.
Okay. Think. What is important for survival? Because you could be a producer. You don't need another producer to be a survival. To survive, what does a producer need? What does a consumer need? And what does a decomposer need? They all need something to function. Think again.
Food chain. Food.
Okay. Seems like we're having a little trouble. So, you eat to get what?
Strong. Energy.
Energy, Nyeska. Energy. So everyone, what do you need for survival?
Energy.
Energy. Great. And I want you to think, what is the main source of energy? Thinking.
Sunlight.
The sun, yeah, good. I'm glad that you remembered that. So great. Plants get their energy from the sun and make food. Who remembers what a plant is considered? So remember, we have producer, consumer, or decomposer. What is a plant considered?
Producer.
Okay, I heard a little bit of different responses. So think, a plant, it makes its own food. So what is it doing? What's another word for making their own food? Producer. So what a plant is considered?
Producer.
A producer. Great. And who breaks down the bodies of dead plants and animals? Oh, remember, wait for my signal. Okay. So someone breaks down the dead plants and animals. Ready?
Decomposer.
Great. Who eats plants? Think. Who eats the plants?
Consumers.
Good, glad. All right. Consumers or animals, right? I'm glad that you remember consumers though from our discussion yesterday at the end of the lesson. So great. Today we will be learning that animals are consumers, which we remember from the end of yesterday. So today we are going to continue learning about the food chain. In this lesson, we will focus on consumers. You will learn what a consumer is and be able to give examples of consumers. It is important to learn all aspects of the food chain in order to understand how it works. It is important to understand how our environment works. Tell your partner why it is important to understand how the food chain works. So take like 5 seconds, think of how the food chain works, and then turn to your partner and discuss why it is important to understand how the food chain works. So Eden, turn with Eliel. Now I'm just going to turn with these 3 girls over here. So go ahead and discuss, why do you think it's important to understand the food chain?
It's important to learn the food chain because...
Okay, so make sure you're talking with your friends and make sure everyone has a turn to talk.
473 to Thrive.
So then they know how it goes. In order, how it goes. It starts with like same thing. Consumers, producers, and the composers. They food chain composers. They all need that, or they all need composers, consumers. Because to survive. Why the food chain is important? Because producers, other animals, they eat other animals.
Okay, come back to me. I heard a lot of good discussions. So I'm going to call on a group. So Eden and Eliel, what did you come up with? Why is it important for the food chain to understand it?
So to understand that consumers eat producers, and then decomposers eat consumers, and then the decomposers need the producers need the decomposers to get nutrients and stuff like that.
Yeah, they all need each other. Producers, consumers, and decomposers all need each other in order to what? Survive. Yeah, they all need each other in order to survive. So it's important to understand what a consumer is in order to know how the food chain works and how everything else in the food chain relies on one another to survive. Because remember, we looked at the arrows in the food chain yesterday. Remember, it's kind of like a cycle. It keeps going and going and going. Okay? So now I'm going to teach you about the consumer in the food chain. Remember, the decomposers break down dead animals and plants. So what do the decomposers do?
Break down dead animals and plants.
Good. They break down dead animals and plants. Remember, producers make their own food. What do producers do?
Make their own food.
Good. So try to remember an example of a decomposer. So I know that we struggled a lot with this because there are as many examples that you could probably think of, but try to think of, I did draw one on the board yesterday. So with your whiteboard, I want you to write the word, don't draw a picture, write a word of an example of a decomposer. Oh, you could just write yours on the board over there. Just cover it. Okay, I want you to write an example of a decomposer. Don't let anyone see your response. An example of a decomposer. You are writing an example of a decomposer. So remember, a decomposer will break down dead animals and plants. When you're ready, put your board flat down, upside down. All right, when I clap, I want you to show me your board. Okay. We we are, what did you write? Okay. Aliel, share what you have.
I picked worm.
A worm. Why did you choose a worm?
Because I know that worm rely on like dead animals and they're kind of like a larva and they like eat like stuff like that.
Yeah, a worm does do that. So try to remember, I've seen some examples of people that had animals. What is an animal considered? We're gonna learn more about that today. But an animal is a consumer. So decomposer is something like a fungi, bacteria. It's gonna break down that dead animal or plant. A worm. Okay, we'll do a little bit more review when we do an activity that I have, and we'll see some more examples of decomposers. Producer, this should be easy. Write an example of a producer on your board. Go ahead, take 10 seconds. Flip your board over when you're finished. A producer, remember, a producer makes their own food. Boards. Eliana, can I see your board, please? Good. Everyone has a concrete understanding of producer. So I've seen a lot of people, I've seen sunflower, flower, plant, grass. It's all, every plant that goes through photosynthesis. Remember, photosynthesis we learned about, that's the process of where the plant is making their own food. So good. I'm glad everyone has an understanding of that, okay? So I'm going to collect the boards and markers. And we may use them again or not. We'll see. So boards and markers right here, please. All right. So next in the food chain are the consumers. What comes next in the food chain?
Consumers.
Everyone, what comes next in the food chain?
Consumers.
Consumers. Good. Consumers depend on plants for food. What do consumers depend on?
Plants.
Okay, so another word for plants would also be what?
Producers.
Producers. Good, Eden. Everyone, what is another word for plants? Consumers depend on?
Producers.
Producers. Good. They are unable to make their own food, consumers. So they rely on the plants to eat, okay? So remember, consumers can't go through photosynthesis and use the sugar to make their own food through photosynthesis, so that's why they're going to eat other plants, okay? So who can make their own food?
Flowers. Plants.
But what is the word?
Producers.
Producers. Good. So consumers consume plants or animals to get their energy. How do consumers get their energy?
Sunlight.
Okay, listen again. Consumers consume or eat plants and animals for energy. How do consumers get energy?
Eat plants or
Eat plants
or animals for
Eat
food.
plants and animals. Everyone?
Eat plants and animals for food.
Yep, consumers eat plants and animals for food. So, now I'm going to show you a picture of a food chain. So here comes a food chain to everyone. And you're going to see some extra terms on there. Herbivore, carnivore, and omnivore. We're not going to pay attention to that. That's what we're going to be focusing on tomorrow. But for today, we're just looking at producer, consumer, and decomposer, okay? So, I want you to touch the consumer on the food chain. Put your finger on the consumer. I want you to see how there is an arrow from the producer to the consumer. Do you see that arrow in between? Yeah. Touch the arrow in between. That is because the consumer needs the producer to survive. Who does the consumer need to survive?
Producer.
Everyone. Who does the consumer need to survive? The
Producer.
producer. Great. Now this is a review question. So I'm going to ask you something that you might have learned already. Who can remember who the producer needs to survive? Who can remember who the producer needs to survive? Raise your hand if you can figure that out by either looking at the food chain or by remembering. Nayevska.
The decomposer.
The decomposer, good. Now I will show you a picture of the food chain. So touch the decomposer on the food chain. Okay. Why do you think that they need the decomposer? Why does the producer need the decomposer? We kind of talked about it yesterday. Why does the producer, remember, it's a plant, need the decomposer that breaks down dead animals and plants? Think about that. We talked about it yesterday. Something to do with the soil. Remember, because plants live in soil. Anyone? Okay, so remember, decomposers break down dead plants and animals, so they make what in the soil? Nutrients. What do plants need? Nutrients. They need the nutrients in the soil to survive. So that's why the decomposers are very important for the producers. Okay, so now I want you to look at the arrow from the consumers to the decomposers. So look at the arrow from the consumers to the decomposers. We will learn more about animals that don't eat plants tomorrow. Why is there an arrow from the consumers to the decomposers? So I want everyone to think, why is there an arrow from the consumers to the decomposers? What is the relationship from a consumer, which is all animals, to the decomposer? Eden.
Because consumers need decomposers, help decomposers.
Okay, and what is the relationship between the two? What happens to the consumers or decomposers? Angelise, do you know? Why is there an arrow from the consumers to the decomposers?
Because
What happens to the consumers?
the decomposers eat them.
Yes, remember the decomposers will break down the consumers. The consumers are going to eventually pass away or decay, and the decomposers are going to break them down, okay? So the producers are going to decay in the soil, so we can understand why the consumers, everyone touch consumers are going to eventually pass away or die. They're going to decay into the soil from the decomposers, and then that soil is going to make the producers able to grow and survive, okay? All right, I'm gonna collect the food chains. And I want you to remember the game that we were playing yesterday and how we used the response cards. So I'm going to show you some pictures and I need you to tell me if they are an example of a consumer. So remember, we have our response cards that are yes and no. All right, you're welcome. So remember, you're going to hold up yes if you think it is an example of a consumer. So if you think it is an example of a consumer, you are going to hold up what?
Yes.
Yes, everyone. If you think it is an example of a consumer, what will you hold up?
Yes.
Yes. If you do not think it is an example of a consumer, what will you hold up?
No.
No. If you do not think it's an example of a consumer, what will you hold up?
No.
No. Good. So let's get started. We will be looking at pictures on a website playing the game as a class. If you think that it is a consumer, I want to know why. So everyone's going to hold up a response card of the picture. If you think it is a consumer, I want you to think in your head why it is a consumer, okay? So I want you to think about it. And I'm going to call on someone to share. If you do not think it's a consumer, I want you to think of why it is not and what it could possibly be. So if it's not a consumer, it's either going to be a producer or a decomposer. So I want you to think of which one it is, okay? So what do I want to know if you think the picture is a consumer? So if you think it is a consumer, what do I want to know?
Yes.
Okay, I want to know yes. That's you telling me that it's a consumer. But what do I also want to know? If you think it's a consumer, remember you're thinking of.
When we're putting it up on your class.
Okay.
What?
You're going to hold up your response card yes. So if I hold up yes, I think it is a consumer. I want to know why it is a consumer. Okay? So if you're holding up yes, it's a consumer. I want to know what?
Why
It's a consumer. Great. Okay? If it is not a consumer, I will ask you what it is, a decomposer or producer. What will you say if it is not a consumer?
No.
Thinking of someone. What will you say if it is not a consumer?